She thought she was just giving a beggar money. But instead, he pressed a bottle of canned water into her hands and whispered, "Drink this, and your tears will end." She didn't know it yet, but that water was about to break a 20-year curse. Grab your popcorn and stay with me as we dive in this emotional story. In the heart of Abuja, where glass towers scrape the sky and the streets glitter with wealth, there stood a mansion so large it cast shadows on smaller houses around it. Its gates were guarded by tall men in black suits, its walls painted the color of ivory, and its gardens were dressed in flowers flown in from distant lands. Yet, for all its beauty, the mansion carried a silence so heavy it weighed on everyone who entered. That silence was the silence of barrenness. Inside lived Chief Adewale, a billionaire whose name echoed in business halls across Nigeria, and his wife, Madam Olana, a woman of grace whose beauty had not faded even after 20 years of waiting. Their union was blessed with riches but cursed with emptiness. They had prayed in churches, knelt before pastors who laid heavy hands on them, and traveled overseas to hospitals where white-coated doctors spoke with foreign accents. Each time, the verdict was the same: there is nothing wrong with you. You should be able to conceive. Yet year after year, their bed remained cold with longing, and their home remained without the cry of a child. At night, when the world grew quiet and only the ticking clock echoed through the halls, Olana would rise from her side of the bed and walk through the vast mansion. She would pause in the nursery she had decorated years ago, walls painted soft yellow, a crib carved from mahogany, toys untouched and gathering dust. She would run her fingers along the rails of the crib and whisper, "When will you come? My child, when will you come?" Then tears would follow, soaking her nightdress until she sank to her knees in prayer. Adewale, though strong in public, carried his pain in silence. Men mocked him in whispers, women pitied him in pitying tones, and relatives made cutting remarks masked as jokes. At family gatherings, cousins would ask, "When will we attend naming ceremony in your house, Chief?" Each question was a dagger, and though he forced a smile, the wound always bled inside. Some nights he would sit on the balcony, staring at the city lights, a glass of expensive wine in his hand, and ask himself if all his billions meant anything without someone to inherit them. They sought help everywhere. A herbalist in the East promised that with certain roots and rituals, their child would come. Adewale paid millions, and Olana drank bitter concoction that burned her throat and made her stomach twist. But still, no seed blossomed in her womb. A renowned doctor in London examined them and declared, "Your bodies are perfect. There is no medical reason why you cannot have children." That verdict was the cruelest of all, for it said their problem was invisible, a curse without a name. As years turned to decades, the emptiness became heavier. Olana's friends became mothers, then grandmothers, while she remained childless. She endured whispers from women in the market, who said softly but loud enough for her to hear, "What is the use of riches if you cannot give birth? She walks with gold on her wrist, but her womb is closed." Each word pierced her, and though she wore diamonds, her heart was made of glass. But Olana was not bitter. Though her tears often filled her pillow, she carried herself with dignity. She gave to the poor, sponsored children through school, and built a clinic in her village. Yet even her kindness was mocked. She adopts other people's children because she cannot have her own, some sneered. Still, she pressed on, her faith clinging to hope like a tree clings to soil in dry season. One evening, as rain drummed gently on the roof of their mansion, Adewale found Olana in the nursery again. She sat on the rocking chair, holding a baby blanket she had kept for years. Her shoulders shook as she wept quietly. Adewale walked in slowly, his face lined with sorrow he rarely showed. He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Olana," he said softly, "I would give away all my wealth if it meant giving you one child. Just one. But what more can we do? We have tried everything. Perhaps God has chosen another path for us." Olana looked up, her eyes swollen from tears. "But why us? Why, Adewale? Have we not given to God's work? Have we not been faithful? Why would heaven close its doors on us while even the careless are blessed with children they do not want? Her voice broke, and she clutched the blanket tighter. Adewale could not answer. He simply drew her close, holding her against his chest as the rain outside grew louder, like the tears of heaven falling on their roof. Time moved slowly in that house. The walls grew taller, the wealth grew larger, but the silence remained. It was a silence so sharp that even the servants felt it. They would whisper in the kitchen, "Madam is too kind for this. Why has God denied her?" And the other would sigh, "Perhaps their blessing will come in an unexpected way." Life is bigger than money. They did not know how right they were. For in the streets of Abuja, where beggars lined corners with bows outstretched, fate was preparing a meeting that would change everything. A meeting between wealth and poverty, between despair and hope, between the mansion with empty halls and the stranger who carried the key to life's miracle. And though Olane did not yet know it, the path to her womb's awakening would not come through hospitals or rituals, but through an act of kindness so small she might have overlooked it. A small gift given to a man the world had forgotten. A gift that would unlock the cry her heart had longed to hear for 20 years. The mansion slept at night under the heavy clouds of Abuja's sky. But destiny was already awake, waiting by the roadside. The morning sun rose over Abuja, casting its golden light on streets that never truly slept. Cars honked, hawkers shouted, and the city bustled with its usual rhythm. But Olana moved through it as though walking in a different world. She had taken her driver's car that day, insisting she wanted to buy some things herself. Sometimes, she longed to step outside the walls of wealth, to feel the pulse of ordinary life and remember what it meant to walk freely without bodyguards watching every corner. The driver parked near a busy street. "Madam, should I wait here?" he asked. She nodded, adjusting her scarf to cover her head. "Yes, but do not follow me. I want to walk a little." She stepped into the crowd, her perfume mixing with the smell of roasted corn, exhaust fumes, and the dust that hung in the air. Traders called out their prices, and the noise of bargaining rose like music. Yet even in the chaos, Olana carried herself with quiet dignity. She bought fruits from a woman by the roadside, paid more than the cost, and smiled when the woman shouted blessings after her. As she crossed toward another store, she noticed a man sitting by the gutter, a small rusted plate before him. His clothes were torn and stained, his hair matted, his beard unkempt. People passed by as though he were invisible. Some turned their faces away, others muttered, "Lazy man. Why doesn't he find work?" But the beggar did not raise his voice to plead. He only sat still, his dark eyes watching the world with an expression that was neither anger nor despair. Something about him made Olana stop. She felt her steps freeze, and for a moment, the noise of the market seemed to fade. She reached into her purse and pulled out some naira notes. Kneeling slightly, she dropped them gently into his plate. The beggar's lips curved into a faint smile. His voice, when he spoke, was surprisingly clear and deep, not the broken mumble she expected. "You have shown kindness where others show contempt. May your kindness return to you." Olana blinked, startled. She had given to beggars before, dozens of them. But never had one spoken like this, with a voice that felt as though it carried weight beyond the present moment. She managed a small smile and turned to walk away. But the beggar called after her. "Madam." She stopped, turned back. The man reached into a ragged bag by his side and pulled out a bottle of canned water, the kind you could buy in any small shop for a few naira. Yet when he held it up, his hand trembled slightly, as though what he held was precious. "Take this," he said. "Drink it, and your tears will end." Olana frowned. "Water?" "Yes," he replied, his gaze steady. "This water is not ordinary. It carries a covenant. For 20 years, your womb has been closed, not because it is barren, but because heaven waits for a door to be opened. That door is mercy. You opened it today. Drink this, and life will come. For a moment, Olana could not speak. She felt her heart race. How could this man know her pain? How could a beggar sitting by a gutter speak of what she and Adewale had hidden from the world? Was he mad, or was he something else? Her instinct told her to walk away, to dismiss him as a deluded man. But there was something in his eyes, something unearthly, a depth that did not match his appearance. She felt as though she were being tested, as though heaven itself had paused to watch her choice. She stepped closer. "Why me?" she asked softly. The beggar tilted his head. "Because you did not walk past me as others did. You saw me. You gave without mocking. In this city, many have wealth, but few have mercy. You have both. And mercy, madam, is the key that riches cannot buy." Her hands trembled as she reached out. She took the bottle, its plastic cool against her palm. It looked so ordinary. Just water. Yet her spirit whispered that it was more. "Thank you," she said, though the words felt too small. The beggar nodded once, his eyes shining briefly before he lowered them. "Go in peace. You will return to this street no longer as a woman mocked, but as a mother." Olana clutched the bottle to her chest and walked away, her steps unsteady. The noise of the market rushed back into her ears, but she felt strangely apart from it all, as though she had stepped into another world. When she returned to the car, the driver noticed the bottle in her hand. "Madam, should I throw it away? It looks dirty." "No," she said quickly, holding it tighter. "No, don't touch it." On the drive back to the mansion, she stared at the bottle, her mind filled with questions. Was this foolishness? Was she letting desperation lead her into madness? What would Adewale say if she told him a beggar had given her water to solve their problem? He would laugh, or worse, he would be angry that she trusted a stranger over doctors. Yet deep inside, hope flickered. A small flame, fragile but alive. She had tried science, she had tried herbs, she had tried prayers shouted over her. Why not this? That night, she sat alone in the nursery again. She placed the bottle on the table beside the crib, staring at it under the soft glow of the lamp. "Is this my miracle?" she whispered. "Or is this just another disappointment waiting to mock me?" Her voice cracked, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She unscrewed the cap slowly. The faint scent of plastic met her nose. She lifted it to her lips, her hands shaking. For a moment, she hesitated, her mind screaming that it was just water. But her heart whispered, "Believe." With a deep breath, she closed her eyes and drank. The water was cool, ordinary, without taste. Yet as it slid down her throat, a strange warmth spread through her chest, settling deep inside her. She gasped, pressing her hand to her stomach. It was not pain, but a sensation she could not name, like light moving within her. She whispered a prayer, half in fear, half in hope. "God, if this is from you, let it be done. If this is madness, forgive me. But I have nothing left to lose." She placed the empty bottle on the crib, where it glistened faintly under the lamp. Then she sank into the rocking chair, her heart pounding, her body trembling with a mixture of fear and faith. Outside, the night deepened over Abuja. The mansion lay silent as always, but in that silence, something had shifted. The beggar, meanwhile, sat alone in the same street where she had met him. He looked up at the stars, his lips moving in words no one else could hear. Then he smiled faintly, as though satisfied, and vanished into the shadows of the night. The days that followed were filled with quiet expectation, though Olana tried to carry on as though nothing had changed. She did not tell Adewale about the beggar or the bottle of water. How could she? He would think her foolish, desperate, maybe even reckless. So she kept it as a secret in her heart, a flame burning silently where no one else could see. But something began to shift. Her body, once so predictable, started to feel different. She woke one morning with a heaviness in her chest and a strange wave of nausea that sent her rushing to the bathroom. She dismissed it at first, telling herself it was something she had eaten. But when it happened again the next morning, and then again the morning after, her heart began to beat with a hope she dared not speak aloud. She stood in front of the mirror one afternoon, staring at her reflection. Her face looked a little brighter, her eyes less weighed down by sorrow. She touched her stomach with trembling hands. Could it be, she whispered. Dare I even hope? Tears threatened to spill, but she held them back, afraid that hope itself might break if she named it too soon. When she finally went to the hospital, her heart nearly stopped as the doctor studied the test results. He adjusted his glasses, looked at her, and then back at the paper in his hand. Madam Olana, he said, his voice steady but tinged with disbelief, you are pregnant. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. Pregnant, she repeated, her voice cracking. Yes, the doctor confirmed, smiling now. Congratulations. You are carrying life. Olana covered her mouth with her hand. The room spun around her as tears burst forth, unstoppable. 20 years of waiting, 20 years of pain and shame, 20 years of emptiness, and now, in one moment, all of it shattered like glass. She clutched her stomach, whispering, "Thank you, Lord, oh, thank you." When she told Adewale that evening, she could hardly get the words out. He was reading in his study when she entered, her face glowing, her hands shaking. "Adewale," she said softly, I am with child." He looked up sharply, the book slipping from his hand. For a moment, he stared at her, as though unsure whether he had truly heard. "What did you say?" "I am pregnant," she repeated, her voice breaking with joy. "It is true. The doctor confirmed it. We will have a child." The silence that followed was heavy, thick, stretching between them like a drum waiting to be struck. Then, slowly, Adewale rose to his feet. His eyes filled with tears, something Olana had not seen in years. He crossed the room in 2 strides, pulled her into his arms, and held her as though afraid she might vanish. His body shook with sobs, deep and unrestrained. "Olana," he whispered, "is this real? After all these years? Is this truly real?" "It is real," she said, pressing her face against his chest. "It is real." They stood there for what felt like hours, clinging to each other, the silence of the mansion at last broken by tears of joy. The news spread quickly. Relatives who once mocked them now sang praises. Friends who had whispered behind their backs now rushed to their mansion with gifts and congratulations. The servants danced in the kitchen, ululating and clapping their hands. The empty halls that had echoed with loneliness now vibrated with laughter and music. Yet amid the joy, Olana's heart carried a question that would not rest: the beggar. She had returned to the same street days later, clutching money and gifts, eager to find him and thank him. But he was gone. No one knew where he had gone or if he had even existed. Some hawkers claimed they had never seen such a man sitting there. Others said he had been there once but vanished without a trace. She searched again and again, week after week, but the beggar was nowhere to be found. At night, she lay awake, staring at the empty bottle of water she had kept hidden in her wardrobe. Sometimes she took it out, placed it against her chest, and whispered, "Who were you?" "A man, an angel, a spirit." No answer ever came. Only the sound of her heartbeat and the gentle flutter in her womb. One evening, Adewale found her holding the bottle. "What is that?" he asked, curious. Olana hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Just a reminder," she said, carefully placing it back. She was not ready to share the full truth, not yet. Perhaps not ever. As her belly grew, so did her strength. The once empty nursery was reopened. The dust was cleared, the crib polished, the toys arranged neatly again. This time, it was not a room of sorrow but a room of hope. Olana would sit there often, her hands caressing her belly, singing softly to the child within. Her voice carried through the halls, turning the mansion's silence into melody. One night, while she rocked gently in the chair, Adewale stood at the door, watching her. His heart swelled with gratitude, not just for the child, but for the woman who had endured so much pain without losing her kindness. He whispered a silent vow, "This child will never lack love. Neither will you." But deep inside, a mystery lingered, a story untold. For though doctors had said nothing was wrong, though science could not explain it, Olana knew the truth. She knew it had not been herbs, nor doctors, nor wealth that had opened her womb. It had been a moment of mercy, a bottle of water, and a beggar whose eyes had seen deeper than most. The world celebrated her pregnancy as a miracle. And truly, it was. But only Olana knew the strange path that had led her here. Only she knew that somewhere in Abuja, perhaps hidden from human eyes, walked a beggar who was no beggar at all. And though she could not find him, though his face appeared only in her dreams, his words never left her mind. "This is not water, it is a covenant. Drink, and your tears will end." Her tears had indeed ended, replaced now with laughter. But in the quiet of her heart, she wondered what price such a covenant might one day demand. The day of birth arrived with a storm. Rain lashed against the windows of the Abuja mansion, thunder rolled through the skies, and the city itself seemed to pause in expectation. Inside, the once empty nursery now waited, filled with colors and warmth, while Olana lay in the hospital, her hand clutching Adewale's with all the strength of 2 decades of waiting. The hours were long, filled with cries of pain and whispers of prayer. Doctors rushed, nurses hurried, and Adewale's heart pounded like a drum. He had faced boardrooms, presidents, and billion-dollar deals, but nothing terrified him as much as the thought of losing Olana in this moment. He held her hand and whispered, "You are strong, my love. You will come through this. We both will." At last, the cry came, a piercing, beautiful cry that cut through the storm like sunlight through clouds. A child's cry. A sound that had been missing for 20 years. Adewale's knees weakened as tears flooded his eyes. The doctor lifted the newborn, a baby boy with tiny fists clenched tight, and placed him in Olana's arms. Olana sobbed as she cradled the child. "My son," she whispered. "My miracle." She pressed her lips to his forehead, rocking him gently, her tears falling onto his soft skin. The emptiness that had haunted her heart dissolved in that instant. She was no longer barren. She was a mother. The hospital erupted with joy. Nurses smiled, relatives outside cheered, and the news spread quickly. By evening, the mansion was alive with celebration. Musicians played drums, relatives poured in with gifts, and servants danced in the courtyard. The halls that once echoed with silence now shook with song and laughter. But amid the celebration, Olana could not forget. That night, while others rejoiced, she slipped quietly into the nursery. She sat in the rocking chair, holding her son close, and gazed at the empty can water bottle she had hidden on a high shelf. She took it down, placed it on her lap beside the child, and whispered, "This is where you came from. Mercy brought you to me." She kissed the baby again, but her thoughts returned to the beggar. She had searched endlessly for him, street after street, corner after corner, but he was nowhere. Some said he had died. Others swore no such man had ever been there. Yet she knew. She remembered his eyes, his voice, his words. She remembered the warmth that had filled her the night she drank the water. 1 week after the birth, she went again to the market street where she had met him. She wore a plain wrapper and covered her head with a scarf, blending in with the crowd. Her driver waited by the car as she walked through the busy stalls. "Did anyone see the beggar who used to sit here?" she asked a fruit seller. The woman shook her head. Madam, no beggar has sat there for months. She tried again, asking a meat seller. He laughed. Madam, I've been here 10 years. I never saw a beggar like the one you describe. Maybe it was your dream. Olana frowned. Could it have been a dream? But no, she had held the bottle, she had drunk the water, and now she held the child in her arms. Dreams did not leave bottles behind. That night, as she rocked her baby to sleep, Adewale entered quietly. He watched her for a moment, then spoke. You keep going to that street. You are searching for someone. She looked up, startled. How do you know? He smiled faintly. Because I know you. Tell me, Olana. Who are you looking for? Her hands tightened around the baby. For a long time, she was silent. Then she said softly, a beggar. A beggar who gave me water and told me my tears would end. After I drank, I conceived. Adewale's brows furrowed. A beggar. Yes, she whispered. He was no ordinary man. I don't know who he was, but I know he was sent for me. And now he is gone. Adewale sat beside her, listening in silence. At last, he said, then we must never forget him. If mercy came to us through him, then his memory must live with us. From that day, they kept the bottle in the nursery, not as an idol, but as a reminder. They told no one else. Relatives and friends believed it was simply a miracle of God, and in truth, it was. But in the quiet of their hearts, they remembered the beggar whose gift had broken their 20-year sorrow. As the boy grew, Olana would sometimes tell him stories. She would hold him close and whisper, "You are here because of kindness. You were born because I gave when I had no reason to, and because someone the world despised carried the key to my destiny. Never despise the poor, my son. Never look down on those the world rejects. For sometimes, they are angels in disguise." Her words sank deep into the child's heart, shaping him as he grew. Years later, people would marvel at how the boy, though raised in wealth, walked among the poor with compassion, giving freely without pride. They never knew why. They never knew the story of the beggar and the bottle of water. But Olana knew. Adewale knew. The mansion, once empty, became a home alive with laughter. Yet in quiet moments, when the house slept and the night was still, Olana would step into the nursery, now filled with toys and books, and lift her eyes to heaven. "Thank you," she would whisper, "for teaching me that mercy is greater than gold." And somewhere, perhaps unseen by human eyes, the beggar smiled. For in that city, in that story, the lesson was clear: wealth can build mansions, but kindness builds miracles. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you that miracles are often hidden in unexpected places. The kindness you show today may unlock tomorrow's blessing. Wealth fades, but compassion plants seeds that last forever. Share this tale with someone who needs hope, subscribe for more timeless stories, and leave a comment with the lesson you're taking away. Remember, never despise the humble, for they may carry the key to your destiny.